Can you hear me now? Hopefully you can hear me now. I'm gonna put you there. All right. Okay, good. All right. I need a copy of that book I'm gonna talk about, don't I? Oh! I'm gonna end up being late to my own meeting. That's at 4. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Okay, I'll have to tell my boss. I was about to make your comments bigger, and then I realized I didn't want to see them. Hi, everybody, and welcome to my series on how I took my life story and made it into my business, my area of expertise, and sort of built a brand on it. If that is something you think you would like to do, then you're in the right place. I'm Daniela. I am a scholar of cults, extreme groups, and extremely bad leadership, but how I figured all that out will be part of this series. I stood in my kitchen one day barefoot in 2018 and listened to a book that inspired me to write my own. And when I got done reading that, I said to myself, why didn't I write that book first? I was educated, by the way. And then my next thought was, oh no, I'm going to write the next one of those. And I had this thought because at the time I was in entrepreneurship. I was running a branch of an organization for free, labor cults. That was about helping veterans get started in entrepreneurship. But no one seemed to really understand the concept of, I'm going to be the next Brene Brown of culture. Who invests in that? The only answer I could find was book companies. So I went on that route. But I'm going to be explaining all of this in a 6 to 10 part series that I'm going to do as I am creating a class on how to do this if you want to, that I'm going to launch in the fall. So the more and more I figure out my artistic process, the more I realize that I need to come here and talk it out, and then I'm gonna be able to boil that down into a class. So where I'm gonna start today is just like how I had the idea to do what I wanted to do, and then how after a straight white male Christian Republican man told me that I should just self-publish because it was impossible to reverse engineer a runaway best-selling memoir. And I looked at him and thought, I don't think you understand reverse engineering. It's definitely possible to do that. The formula, by the way, is interesting origin stories well told with ideas that matter to everyone. And then there's the fact that writing a good book and selling a good book are different things. And then on top of that, being able to tuck enough of your own expertise into that book to then make it so that you can build a platform on your expertise and not just only on your sensational story. And to be clear, if you would like to write a sensational story about your life and make millions of dollars off of it, all the more power to you. It is your story to tell. And when I was reassuring my friend that I wasn't going to write a super sensational book, she said that to me. She was like, you get to do anything you want with your story. This is exactly what I did. And this is what you can do too. In fact, some of the stuff that happened for me might be very unlikely to happen to you. And I don't like people that make big promises, but I do think that adding structure to this concept of doing this, of reverse engineering, writing your own life story and making it matter to everyone is something you can do. I say 4 years after I stood barefoot in that kitchen and made that decision, I had a major Macmillan book come out that said, in the vein of Educated and Glass Castle, even though everyone along the way told me that it was crazy to compare myself to such a giant. So Shoot for the Stars is going to be part of this. And that, like, the reason I have a big Macmillan book out is because I was a military planning officer and I put together a plan and I went after it. And that doesn't mean everything's going to go very well. Like, obviously I had a lot of luck along the way. There was good timing for me and bad timing for me, both of which affected my book journey. But all of these things are still just better to know. So So in the class that I'm trying to put together, what I want is for people to walk away with these very specific outputs of like an outline for the story you want to tell, an idea of what your expertise is and what the themes of your book is going to be, those themes that you tuck into your personal life story are going to be, one, what makes it interesting to other people. Nobody wants to read their story, your story, they read their story. That was a quote that I had above my desk where I was writing my memoir. And so it's like, how are you going to relate these themes to everybody? And one of the things I did accidentally, on purpose, but it was a little more accidental than I realized, was I was getting my master's degree alongside writing my memoir. And so I was tucking these bigger ideas into my work. And one of the reasons I decided to go back and get a master's degree was because I was like, I want to build a platform on my expertise. I'm good at being an expert. I like doing that. When I got out of the military after being an intelligence officer, I was like, I'm good at being an expert. What am I going to be an expert at next? And so I talk to many authors who say they're not an expert at anything. And I'm like, I mean, you've written a book. Only 1% of the world has written a book. So if you do it correctly, you are an expert in quite a few things, including have read books. So when I decided I wanted to write a book, I was like, okay, I don't know how to do that. It's going to take me a decade to learn to write a good memoir, which is, by the way, completely an option. That's the option most people take. I said to myself, I need to do it in 2 years, right? Like, there's a cult leader running America right now. What I have to say is relevant right now. I set out to do it in 2 years. I did it in 4. Split the difference. Hello, baby.
Hello.
Welcome. I'm sorry. Can I have a hug?
Yep.
I'm in the middle of recording, and then I'm going to go into a meeting, and I'm very sorry. It's bad timing. Don't. How was your party?
It was good. Wait, 1 sec. I'll be right back.
Okay, I think you need to do your checklist stuff, right?
Yep.
It's just going to be a little intro, because we're not going to get to the full 25.
Do I have to take the dog out?
No, he's been out. Okay.
Hallelujah.
Okay, so because I was in entrepreneurship, one of the things I realized when I was like, had a big idea, oh, I can take this crazy life I've lived and turn it into a story, and now I kind of feel like I have a model for how I'd like to do that. And I didn't have all the skills I needed to accomplish it. I wasn't a very skilled memoirist or writer in general, or someone who knew anything about the publishing industry. And one of the things you just get very familiar with in the entrepreneurship space, which is very culty too, is you go find a co-founder, right? And so we joke that Brandy Larson, who is also on the title page of the book, is the co-parent of Uncultured, because I decided I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to write a big story of my life that gives other people insight. What I say now is like the context and language to be part of their journey and how they're discussing their story. I've read Educated 3 or 4 different times now, and like the different ways that I relate to it all throughout my journey. And also the fact that I regularly hear people refer to it as uneducated, and I did that. The truth is, when you decide you want to do something with your story, there's still like 1,000 different ways you can do that, right? So you can get help. One of the things that I did, so obviously I'm going to talk about it, is I got help from a lot of different outside sources. And that's how I got it done. I like to say, don't take on multi-million-dollar projects by myself. And I'm a big fan of co-creating stuff, of paying people well and or sharing profits with them that I wouldn't have had without them. And so we literally got together and we were like, how are we going to do a story out of my life. And she says that I was the best prepared client that she ever had. And so I'm going to tell you what I did to prepare for that. Yeah. I was roasting you today on the internet, young lady, who promised me that if I finished her rainbow coat last night, she would wear it to school. And guess who didn't wear it to school?
I didn't know you finished it.
I was hardcore roasting you this morning.
Mom, I didn't know you finished it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm serious.
It looks beautiful on you, by the way.
Mom, I'm serious. I didn't know you finished it.
It's okay. I love you. It does look really good. It needed those orange sleeves. Okay. Yes.
Nothing. I just wanted to do that.
I'm trying to get this thing recorded. Okay. All right. So the other things that I did when I decided I wanted to write a book, I found a book that was very, very similar to mine. They call these comps in the publishing world. And then I got in touch with that author and asked her what she did, and she told me all these useful things about her journey, and then I went and did all those things. And a couple of those things, if I boil it down and make it generic, was like, go find a networking group of that kind of book, you know? So sometimes I'm like, especially when men are asking, I'm like, I don't know like what the networking groups are for men writing this kind of stuff, but go find them and go get into that community, because those are the people that are really, really going to help you. There's a book called The Byline Bible by Sue Shapiro that is basically about how, if you want a memoir deal, you can get a splashy article in some kind of publication that authors and agents and editors read, and that shows that you have range. And so I bought that book and I started working on that book. It's very tactical. It gives you homework. You'll get all of these like ideas out of it.
Why would I want a book that gives me homework?
One of those things was, she said, if you expect to get paid for your writing, maybe put some professional investment in it and go take a writing class. And I did. And I signed up for an adult writing class. You can get these all over. I was in Seattle at the time, so I did a $250 class at the Hugo House, and it was called Show and Tell. And it was literally where I learned what it means to write in scene, to put someone in scene. When Uncultured opens up with me in basic training, or you getting in the spanking line, like, that is putting you in scene. You need to know how to do that. And just like as an investment, and honestly, I tell people it's such a good investment in your own like healing, especially if you didn't have much development in yourself as a child. Like, go take a writing class. It's great. So I did that. I got in a networking group. Ultimately, somebody put a call for pitches in there, and the call for pitches was, I'm either looking for like a brand new story or a twist on a story I've heard 1,000 times, but it's, you know, got something brand new. And I have to say there were two parts of my response to her that were important. One was she had an easy name to misspell, and I did not misspell it. And two was I basically pitched, you know, what about Americans cheering on 9/11? I pitched a story because I hadn't had anything published before. She accepted it on spec, which means we'll take it, we'll pay you this much if we like it, you know, if we can get it to where it is, which is fair, because they don't know what your writing's going to look like. This is also why it's important to get what they call some bylines, like get published, if you're trying to get agents or book companies to take you seriously, because they want to see that you actually have the chops to do the thing. So I was working this process, right? And ultimately I would get this essay published in Narratively magazine called I Escaped the Cult, but I didn't escape the cult mentality. That led in many ways to ultimately the book deal. And we'll get back around to that later in this series. So at the same time as I was doing that on my own, I was also starting to work with Brandy. So Brandy Larson was a former publishing executive at Penguin Random House. And then she had left that and moved to Ohio to be more of a mom. And she was styling herself a women's finishing coach, right? Like helping women take their big ideas and actually turn them into books, which is exactly what I needed help with. I was like, legitimately don't know how to write a book. Help. And I originally hired her. I think our contract was about. No. I was connected. We were connected through the Mom Network, and hired her, I believe, for about $800 then. Although rates certainly can change. Just trying to give an idea of like what I was investing at this time, and we are very good friends. Yeah, she helped me write a whole book about my life, and I wanted to walk away from this 4-part consulting session with an outline for the story I was going to write, idea at least of how to write book proposals and query letters, and then like the beginnings of understanding how to go about getting an agent and like getting myself a book deal. It would end up, because I said I was working on both of these things at the same time, it would end up coinciding very, very nicely where our 4th session was supposed to be talking about the agent and her bringing like her industry stuff to bear. And instead that article had come out, an agent had called me, I'd signed with a big agency, and we then decided we were going to do this book together.
Where's the remote?
I don't know, love. Right there. And then final thing for today. Hey, please be aware of the sound, because I know I'm recording right now. Okay. And then I'm gonna go into this meeting, so like it has to be catching.
Stop volume 5, Mom.
Okay, then final thing on being well prepared was a different person had told me, sit down and make a list of every year of your life and then just start writing down like salient things about it, where you were, what was happening, what was going on, all these different things. And I think that's one of the most things you can do for a couple of reasons. One of them being like almost everyone that reads a powerful memoir, like Uncultured, goes, oh my gosh, but I don't have a memory like yours. And while that's probably true, like most of us don't have a memory the way that memoir is painted, right? So there's a process that you're going to have to go through of just waking up memories and filling in the blanks with your best guess. And this may include talking to other people in your life, right? Like getting things together. And another thing I learned through working with another person was you don't necessarily know the stories of your life that are going to illustrate the themes that you're trying to talk about the best. And one thing that I learned is if you get it out of your head, anything of your art, your big ideas, you can then get other people to help you. And that's where like I shine. So the final thing I'm going to give you, then I have to run, is there was one thing that she told me. She said, okay, you are, Daniela, you are not famous. Nobody's going to read a story about your life. So your memoir has to be about one idea. What is that idea? My idea was this thing I was tackling at the time in group behavior. Please turn it way down. I really asked you about this, and I don't do this very often. More down, please. No, I'm clearly using the living room. You don't get to show up and fight me for sound. Supremacy, okay? Thank you. So my idea was this idea that humans will do almost anything to fit in with their voluntary groups. And I was like, we can show that in this microsystem of the cult that everyone thinks of as so extreme, and we can show that then again in this macro system of the US Army that we all support, at least with our taxes. And this also gives us the format of the book, right? We are going to do I call it the McDonald's, right? We're going to take you through the cult and then take you through the Army, and we're showing you a parallel. Basically, all of the stories and themes that we choose to pick out on the cult side, we're going to put on here. We did a couple of cool craft things. Like we talk about cult life with very military terms, and we talk about military life with some culty type terms, right? Because we're making you see back and forth. I did not want to make it a hero's journey. She was like, I'm sorry, you have no choice. That triangle has to be over. Your bunny ears. And then you plan backward from there. Another, make every chapter of your book, it could be its own TED Talk. And I joked, Randy was like, don't say that because nobody will buy the book. But I was like, every one of these chapters could have been just like a long essay of me ranting on a topic, right? Like it reads like a chronological story of my life. But chapter 1 is about corporal punishment and giving you the history of the cult. Chapter 2, Tale of Two Mommies, about the split personality of cult parents. Published in Rolling Stone magazine, is about programming the children to lie for the cult. Chapter 4 is about medical neglect. Chapter 5 is about sexual abuse. Chapter 6 is because you just needed to see a bonkers cult party. Chapter 7 is about homeschooling, right? On and on and on. All of those things, all of those topics that I just listed, plus then all of the themes that I'm going to tuck in all the way through, those are all markets for me. And this is how now you all see me talk everything I talk about. I'm like, I wrote about this in Uncultured, right? Because those themes run all the way through. And my least strength is writing. Like I'm not actually going to teach you that much about writing skill in the class. I am really good at how do you design this? How do you make this product, right? How do you take your life and turn it into a product that people can buy while you're sleeping? So that's what we're going to do in the course. That's in this series is going to be me telling you my process of that. And then you can take that and do hopefully your own version, and I'll blurb your book. Okay. That was that. Now I have to say bye to you all because I'm late to my own meeting. So just, repurposing content. The course is going to be in person the first time I run it, and it might never be public because it's only going to have 15 slots, and I'm giving them to the book club. But then I'm going to make an online course of it also. Just message